Carl Sagan, Bernie's argument, I assume, is that reducing income equality helps the black community. I read that piece that argued against this. I feel like the optics of Bernie's reaction at Netroots was bad, but his answers aligned with Black Lives Matter. They asked Bernie to say her name, but he can't be blamed for not knowing that they were referring to Sandra Bland, which had happened days before. And his comments about community policing were on point. Look, I think Bernie was too trapped in his script. They both did poorly. O'Malley, I thought, did poorly too. He obviously clearly doesn't understand what Black Lives Matter means. We all know that people should believe that all lives matter. When O'Malley said all lives should matter, of course all lives should matter. The reason why the slogan Black Lives Matter has stuck is because it says something that is obvious, but is actually, in many senses, not actually lived. And that's the whole point of the saying. You're not quite getting, and there's a certain amount of irony there, but, to a certain extent, like the whole thing felt like Grandpa doesn't get what's going on. And I felt that with O'Malley, and I felt that with Bernie Sanders. And, I think part of the problem is for white people, I mean, it's too general to say that, but I'm speaking broadly now. All lives matter is sometimes a metaphor. Or I should say, Black Lives Matter is a metaphor. And I think Bernie Sanders addressed it on that level, where there are policies that he would prescribe. And part of this is also his worldview, is that race is secondary to class in the way that our society is organized. And I think in America, of all places, that's a very hard argument to make. They're far more intertwined, I think. But it is true that Bernie's policies will help African Americans, and perhaps arguably more so disproportionately, will provide more help disproportionately to African Americans because they have been systemically oppressed and shut out of opportunities. But there's also a very real problem of race that impacts you whether or not you're a wealthy black person or a poor black person. And, part of that was, Sandra Bland. She's going to get a job. She's driving to, a college graduate, I think, right? I mean, it's not necessarily that she doesn't have the opportunities. It's that fundamentally there is a tremendous amount of racism in this country, that particularly when it comes to authority, the way that African Americans are treated is fundamentally different. And I think Sanders missed it. With all that said, if I was running against Bernie Sanders in the primary, I'd be bummed that this happened in July, that his, I won't want to say tone deafness, but maybe tone deafness on this subject was revealed, because it gives him time to correct it. I mean, theoretically, the point of a protest like that, particularly in a place that is nominally allied or with people who you perceive to be potential allies, or allies who you perceive as not paying enough attention and not spending enough resources and time and understanding of these issues, this is why you do that. So that your issue gets more prominence, and so that it becomes part of the agenda of people running for elected office, in addition to other things. And so from that perspective, you know, the next day, Bernie Sanders is in Dallas, and he mentions Sandra Bland's name. And so he learned something. He learned that for a very important constituency in the Democratic Party, there are issues that he may not be fully sensitive to. Now, I would like to have thought and that he had staffers or had an awareness or a deeper understanding of this stuff. But I would like it for all politicians to have that. And I would argue that probably none of them do. And so, if this is how it works, this is how it works, great. You know, I mean, that's the point of it. If it was not valuable for Bernie Sanders to learn a lesson, and O'Malley to learn a lesson, and frankly, everybody involved in it to learn a lesson, if there was no value in that, then there was no point in the protest in the first place. So to see Bernie Sanders respond to it, I think that's a good thing.